One photo, two computers, two married people face off in the ultimate showdown. Who can edit better? This is the second and not the only Becki versus Chris Ultimate Lightroom Challenge.
It's showdown.
I know, I said it wrong.
Get on my level. I should automatically win the showdown because of that. I mean the showdown.
See? But we've done this episode. Segment. We've done this segment one time before last year. And we said we may do it again, and now we're doing it again because it was a lot of fun.
Also, I smoked you.
No. The purpose of the Ultimate Lightroom Showdown is to show you guys that you can have the same photo and have two completely different looks depending on how you edit them in Lightroom. And Chris and I have a very different style when it comes to photo editing. So that's what we're gonna do. We have this photo. This is the photo we're gonna be using today. I took it at Shannon Falls.
We're gonna crop this photo vertically for A, social media purposes, B, thumbnail purposes, and C, because it's like 60 something megapixels and we can.
We're gonna have our showdown, me versus Chris. We're gonna edit these photos. Then we're gonna reveal it to each other, and then we're gonna give you guys an entire breakdown on how we both edited each of our photos. So we're basically gonna do 2 Lightroom tutorials plus 1 showdown in 1 video.
And what you're gonna do is go in the comments below and say whose is better.
Okay, so we're gonna work with a vertical crop, but we're gonna use our discretion. Is that what we're saying?
We're gonna use our discretion, correct. Crop is part of the edit.
Well, don't look, Chris. I'm paying attention.
At least I can use this as a mouse pad here. Look at that.
The lights are throwing me off.
Oh yeah, excuses, Peckham.
Oh no.
What's wrong?
My computer is lagging.
Oh, your computer can't handle it.
Things are awfully quiet over there, including the clicking of that mouse.
I'm concentrating here, okay?
Don't tickle me, stop it! I'm Hunchback Notre Dame over here trying to do my
Don't look at my edit!
Don't look at my edit! Do you remember how to use Lightroom? Do you need to watch some of my tutorials? Actually, I haven't made a Lightroom tutorial in a while.
Well, we're both making one today. I haven't edited in so long that I thought I was using the adjustment brush, but I was using the spot removal brush. I was like, why is this happening?
Well, thankfully, you've got this new mouse to bring you into the right century, and now you have this moment to practice your skills.
What's in here?
Okay, that's 8 minutes.
How long do I have?
Done time. No time left. Give me some more.
Oh, my foot! Foot out! That was interference! You did that on purpose! You thought-
It slipped out of my hands! Look how small and skinny this thing.
You just Nancy Kerrigan me.
I'm finished.
You Nancy Kerrigan me.
I'll give you a handicap of 2 minutes. Set timer for 2 minutes. I know she got something new there.
I'm sick of you making fun of my mouse, okay?
I have this weird mouse from 2002.
This is tried and true for over a decade. So after we carbonated our mouse, it turns out it was actually 2 decades old. Everybody in the comments were chirping me too. And I'm pretty sure Logitech probably saw that video and they're like, yo, we gotta get this guy a new mouse. Yeah. So this video is sponsored by Logitech. They sent me their MX Anywhere 3. In the comments, hands down, the most frequent recommendation was the MX series mice. I love this thing, it's fantastic. Top 4 features I like about it. Number 1, it looks great in this sort of matte gunmetal gray, kind of fits our charcoal aesthetic here. Second thing I like, I plugged it in and it just worked.
That mouse works with PC and Mac, so I can steal it.
Yeah, and there's actually a little button on the bottom so you can actually quickly switch between computers. Number 3, the Logitech Options software. You can then customize every button to do whatever you want. For example, in Lightroom, I hit the middle button here. I have that bound to the backslash button so I can toggle before and after edits. Number 4 thing I like about this is it literally works anywhere. I'm using a plexiglass table as a mouse pad. And if I need to use the couch here, that works too. I can use your face. It works, it works. Bonus thing that I like the best is, this is actually the nicest scroll wheel I've ever seen.
Yeah, please. It's like an ASMR moment.
It is nice, it is
nice.
Yeah.
Look, I can use it anywhere.
Stop scrolling on my computer. This is gonna take my Lightroom challenge to the next level, and it's going to help me kick your ass.
Those are some bold words there, Nicholas.
All right, bring it on. Let's do it. 3, 2, 1.
What's with me dropping this computer? Yours has color in it. Here, give me.
Yeah, yours
doesn't.
Doesn't.
Oh, I like what you did with the waterfall. Look at the trees. I love the way you like relit the trees.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it took me a little bit longer, didn't it? But
Yeah.
I went all out.
You did go all out.
Just like apply your preset and then just be done. Is that, you got finished so fast. That's how you did it. You're just like, and I'm just gonna apply my Becki and Chris preset for Instagram, and then I'm done. No, then chirp me for taking so long from doing everything.
God, your
from
computer's
scratch.
on fire because you've been working on it for so long, doing all of these edits. I did not apply my preset, but I am gonna show you guys how I got this look out of this photo. First thing I did was crop the photo to an 8x10, and then I just started using my basic adjustments to change the highlights and the shadows. So drop the highlights down, the whites down, the shadows up a little bit, drop the exposure a little tiny bit, add a bit of contrast. Then I come down here to clarity, add a little bit of clarity for a little bit of a pop and some texture. And I actually dropped the dehaze slider down a little tiny bit because I wanted to accentuate the fog. I'm gonna adjust the color temperature here and just make it a little cooler. And then I'm going to come down here to my mask tool, and I'm gonna add a little bit of an oval mask. So that's just gonna darken the outside a little bit, keep the center bright, and that's gonna add some focus onto the waterfall. So I'm just gonna adjust my exposure, drop my shadows down a little tiny bit. Then I'm gonna come up here and add a gradient to the sky, and that's just gonna darken the sky a little bit. I shot this raw, so there's details within the image. So I'm gonna drop my exposure, my highlights, my whites. I'm gonna scroll all the way down to my split toning, and I'm going to just jack up the saturation here and then just slide the hue slider around until I like it. Drop up the balance a little bit so that it's only affecting the shadows, and then drop the saturation down. Gonna go down here to my hue sliders now and play with the tones of the greens. I'm going to desaturate those a little bit by dragging my green slider down in the saturation. See my yellows, just tone those down a little bit. Turn that on and off. I'm gonna adjust my crop a little tiny bit here. Not overly happy with it. I think that's a bit better. I'm gonna boost those shadows a little bit more, boost the clarity a little bit more. It's all about kind of going back and massaging your edits. I'm gonna adjust my mask here to give that focus on the image, and adjust my gradient mask a little bit more, drag it down, adjust it, and just drop the exposure a little bit. I want that a little bit darker to have a little more detail in the sky so it looks more moody. Then I'm gonna come down to my curves, and I'm gonna add a bit more contrast. So I'm just gonna use the medium contrast point curve here, and I'm going to drop my whites down a little bit by dragging down this little button, bring that shadow up a little tiny bit. A dusty look. Back up at the HSL sliders, I'm gonna drop the blues and the aquas down, and then I'm gonna come back down to my split toning and adjust the tone of that to be a little bit more blue. So that's kind of how I usually edit my Instagram photos. That's how I get that kind of dark, moody, bluish kind of look. Do you wanna describe how you do yours?
Sure. Okay, so the first thing I did was adjusted the crop. I changed it to 8x10 into a portrait orientation. And then the next thing I do is I start with the basic control panel and really just try to get the exposure and contrast nailed. And in order to decrease the dynamic range of the scene, I've decreased the highlights and increased the shadows, as also increased the black point. Looking at the image, I adjusted the white balance till it looked about neutral. I played a little bit with the presence sliders here, the texture and the clarity. I ultimately left the texture and clarity where it was and just decreased the dehaze to add a bit of haziness effect. The next thing I did was adjust the tone curve here. If this is confusing to you guys, I did a whole masterclass on how to use tone curves to adjust your image, so check that out. We'll link the video above in the cards. Next thing I did was I wanted to relight the scene, so I felt that the existing lighting was nice in the trees. You sort of have this area of highlights in the leaves, but I felt we could accentuate that by using some adjustment brushes. So you can see that I'm just brightening up some of these branches that are already naturally have light spilling on them to accentuate the existing lighting in the image. So once I've added all that detail, I'm basically just gonna paint over these areas in the trees and just add a little bit more brightness to the entire tree itself, not just the lit up branches. All right, so next thing I'm gonna do is add a graduated neutral density filter to the sky. Basically, I'm gonna drop the highlights and place the filter to add back some detail and make it look a bit more dynamic. Okay, so I've adjusted the red, green, and blue channels using curves. Essentially what I've done is I've sucked red and green out of the shadows to add cyan and purple. And I've also added sort of a yellowish green tint to the highlights. If these adjustments are confusing to you, again, I recommend you check out our tone curve masterclass video where we explain all of this. Okay, next up is the Hue Saturation Lightness. And essentially what I've done here is I've tweaked the warmer yellow-green hues, which corresponds to the green foliage. and I've changed those to be more of an emerald green, and then I've changed some of the areas of saturation to taste, dropped the saturation in the yellow greens, and I've added a little bit of orange saturation to bring out the rocks, and then I've also brightened those up a little bit too. And what I usually do is I'll crank the slider to full 100% and minus 100% just to see what color band I'm affecting, and then fine tune it into where I want it. So the next thing I did was I used the split toning dialog to add a little bit of blue to the shadows. I used the default lens corrections, removed chromatic aberration, and then made my own post-crop vignette. I tend to use a high feather and a low intensity to get a more natural look. And that is the final image.
What I found was interesting is watching your edit afterwards is the way you basically wanted to show all of the elements of the photo while adding some vignette to add a bit of focus, but you didn't want to take away from the trees. You wanted the trees to be in the shot, whereas I wanted the trees to sort of disappear and the focus to be on the waterfall.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, we sort of viewed the trees as with different purposes in mind. But I totally see here, they're kind of more of a, you're using it sort of like as a dirty frame rather.
Exactly. Once again, this is just proving that you can do so much with the same photos. And that's, again, something I mentioned this in the last video, something I love about going out and shooting with people, and you're shooting the same type of stuff. But in the end, it doesn't matter if you and your friend are getting the same shot, because chances are, as long as you're editing your photos yourself, then your photos are gonna look different. If you're using somebody else's presets, then they're gonna look like somebody else's photos. But if you're editing them yourself, so you're always gonna get a different look, and that's the beauty about photography and the beauty about knowing how to edit your own photos.
Well said. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, that's it. Hopefully you guys found this video helpful and learned a couple of tips and tricks. Thank you so much to Logitech for sponsoring today's video and finally upgrading Chris's mouse. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell so you get notified when we post new videos. See you on the next one.
See you on the next one.
You have 8 minutes left on this card, so we have 8 minutes to do this edit. Oh, you can't edit in 8 minutes?
No, I don't practice this.
Practice? Is your toes okay? Do you need some ice?
That hurt.
Are you ready? How long does it take to set up screen recording?
I can't remember how to,
I think I'm winning by default. Oh, you're not used to technology? Get it together, Chris. Yeah. How long does it take one person to set up screen record?
You can't even record in 4K. Oh, get on my level. PC for life.